Alrighty, let's get started. So, first of all, any questions about anything we've done so far? Any of the assignments? Anything at all? We're all good? Alright, so what I am going to tell you about today is repetition. So we already have selection under our belt. We already do the input, the output, the variables. And now the next thing is making the program repeat something a bunch of times. Okay? So I am going to do this. I'll leave all these other libraries from before. Okay, so let's say I have, I don't know, some lines of code. Like maybe I have a cout with a hello, right? And endo. Okay? And what I want to do is I want to repeat that line a bunch of times. So let me do this. If I go in there and I copy it, right, paste it 5 times, and I run my code, there you go. There's 5 hellos. Okay, so how am I going to make my program repeat a single line of code as many times as I want so I don't have to go and copy paste it a bunch of times? So I'm going to go in there, right, and I'm going to do this. So if you know how many times something is going to happen, that will be a candidate for using a for loop, right? So if you know how many times a loop will happen, use a for. Okay? And for is an example of a loop. Okay? So the for loop goes like this. You have a for, you have some kind of a variable, whatever you want to call it. Let's call it I. I is equal to 0. And then you're going to say I is less than 5. Right? I want this thing to happen 5 times. I'm going to say I plus plus. Okay? You can also say I is equal to I plus 1. You can say I plus equals 1. But the shortest one is just plus plus. Right? So I'm telling I to increase its value by plus 1 every time. Alright? So I go in there. I'm going to take out these lines. Alright? So instead of writing the same line of code a bunch of times, I'm going to make a for loop. I'm going to put that one line in there. I'm going to run the code. And there it is. Works exactly the same as before. Okay? So what's happening here is I'm starting the value of I. So I'm declaring a variable I. I'm making it equal to 0. I'm telling this loop go on while this thing is less than 5. And then I'm telling it increase your value by plus 1 every time you go through the loop. Right? So instead of a hello, I can go in there and I can say, all right, I is equal to, and I'm going to show you the variable I. All right? So when I run this thing, these are the values of the variable I, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, if I wanted to go to 5, to include the 5, I can just say less than or equal to, and there you go, now it goes to 5. Any questions? Pretty straightforward. All right. So it can go forward, it can go backwards. So this thing shows you, so let me put a little comment here. So this is I is equal to, let's go to 4. All right, I is equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the values of I. I can grab this thing, let me copy this loop. All right, and whatever was in the loop. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to tell it to go to, I don't know, maybe 10. Okay, but this time it's not going to be in increments of 1. I'm going to tell it, okay, I is equal to I, let's do it the shorthand, plus equals, I don't know, 2. Right, so now what I'm telling it is start at 0, go on while you're less than 10, and increase yourself by plus 2 every time. All right, so if I run this, let me put a little separator. All right, then run it. All right, so then it goes 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, if I wanted to go all the way to 10, make it equal to 10, run it. Now it goes to 10. Okay? So far so good? All right. So you can change the increment. So basically you can think of it as this way. You have a start, you have a stop, and you have a step. Right? The step could be +1, right? So I could change this thing to plus equals 1, right? The step can be +2, right? Okay. So this is going forward. I can also make this thing go backwards, right? So I'm just going to copy this whole thing. So right, this the values of I were I equals 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, right? I can grab this thing, paste it one more time. This time I'm going to tell it, okay, start at 10, go on while you are greater than 0, and then go backwards, -2. All right, so then it's going to go 10, 8, etc., etc. So let me run it again. Run one more time. All right, so now it does 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. So far, so good? Any questions? Okay, so, and again, if you know how many times the thing is going to repeat, if you know where it starts, if you know where it stops, if you know what the step is, use a for loop. That's what the for loop is for. And that's about all I can tell you for a for loop, right? So some common mistakes are putting a semicolon after the for loop. Okay, unless the compiler complains. Even if the compiler doesn't complain, let's say I go in there and I say int I, that way I don't have to declare it here. And then I'm going to go and put a semicolon in there. Okay, so don't ever put a semicolon after a for loop, otherwise this is what happens. See? Didn't work. Okay, so why is it doing this? It's actually giving, let's say I'm going to give this a value of -99, right? If you put a semicolon at the end of a for loop, it is the same thing as if you were to go in there and do this. You just take out the for loop. All right, it's called do nothing loop. All right, so it's just a fault, a flaw in the language, in the C++ language itself. It should give you a syntax error, but it doesn't. This is just like one of the many ways that this programming language is not the best, right? It doesn't give you meaningful errors. It just crashes. Things don't work the way it's supposed to. All right, so if I run it like this, you're gonna see I is equal to 0. I'm not even sure why it gets to the 0. If I do it the other way, then it's gonna go -99. The bottom line is, don't do this to a for loop. Don't ever put a semicolon after it. It's not allowed. Okay. So that's that. All right. So these are for loops. Let me run it again. Make sure it works. There you go. Okay. So you can go forward. You can change by how much it jumps, and you can go backwards also. So this is I is equal to 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. Okay. So now, besides you for loops, and by the way, I can have a for loop that happens as many times as the user wants to. All right, so I can say, all right, int times, I guess, all right, and then cout, how many times do you want to repeat, right? And then you do a cn times, right? And I'm just going to grab my for loop. Let's go with that first one. I'm going to get this, right? Throw that in there, and I'm going to copy one of these. Okay. And by the way, if I have a single thing inside of my loop, I don't need the curly brackets. Just like I did with my ifs and elses, if there's only one thing, just like, you don't have to have the curly brackets, but I'm going to put them anyway. Right? That way you can stay consistent. All right? Okay. So how many times do you want this to repeat? I'm going to change my stop 2 times, right? So it's going to start at 0, it's going to go to whatever the user enters in increments of 1. So let's say I'm going to run this. I should have put a little separator. Let me get this one. Put that right in there. One more time. How many times would you like to repeat? I don't know. 30 times. There you go. It goes from 0 to 1 less than 29, but that's still 30 times. Okay? So that's a loop that happens as many times as the user wants to. And again, I would use a for loop because I know how many times something is going to happen. Questions? Still good? Alright. So really that's pretty much all I can tell you as far as a for loop is. You can have a loop inside of another loop. Those are called nested loops. So I can have a loop and then I can have another loop in it. That's allowed. If you're going to be doing like differential equations and matrices and stuff like that, you might have to end up doing like triple nested loop, right? It gets pretty ugly. But we're not going to do any of that. Don't worry about it. Okay, so these are for loops. Let's have a look at another kind of loop, and that is a while loop, right? So I'm going to go in there, and basically I'm going to show you that a while loop can work exactly the same way that a for loop can work. Okay, so but if you know how many times the loop will happen, use a for loop. It's not a good practice to use a while loop instead of a for if you can use a for loop. Okay, so I'm going to put a little for in there, just like that. All right, and then I'm going to make so rewrite the above using a while loop. Okay, so I go in there and I'm going to declare a different variable. By the way, this variable here, I, is just arbitrary. I mean, the name of it is whatever I want. Just like a variable name, you can choose whatever you want as long as it follows those basic rules. Like it can't start with a number, it can't have a space, that kind of stuff. Alright, so rewriting the above using a while loop. Let's say I'm going to have a variable, I'm going to call it, I don't know, j. I'm going to make j is equal to 0. This is my start. Okay, then I'm going to say while my j is less than 5. Right, this is my stop. Right, this is where it's going to stop. I'm going to do curly brackets. I'm going to copy this whole thing to show the message. I'm going to change this to while, and this was j. All right, j. And one more thing I have to do is I have to say j is equal to or plus equals 1, right? Plus equals 1, also known as j plus plus, right? That's one way to do it. Also known as j is equal to j plus 1. So you can write this any way you want, right? This is the shorter one, and all the other ones work too. Okay, so I'm going to run this, and we're going to see the while. Let me change this to, yeah, I'll leave it like that. So run it, and here's your while, right? It goes from 0 to 4, just like your for loop. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go show you the other ones. So I'm going to copy this here, right? Up to there, copy that. So now I'm going to rewrite this one here. Okay, rewrite the above with a while loop. Alright, throw that in there. J starts at 0 while j is less than 10. Right, j increases its value by plus 2. Right, run that. And you can see that works just the same as the for loop before. 0 through 8, 0 through 8. Right, so this and this are the same thing basically. Alright, next one, I'm going to show you this one too, but you pretty much get the idea already. Alright, so I'm going to rewrite the above. Rewrite the above. So I have to type this again. This. Okay, so you tell me, where does j start?
Hi, 10.
Okay, j is 10. where does, how do I change this to? J is what? So it can be working the same as the top one. Greater than 0. Okay, and my step is going to be minus 2. Okay, and hopefully that works also the same. Run it, and there you go, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. Okay, so you can do the same exact thing that you can with a for loop, with a while loop, except it takes more lines of code, right? One of them has a start, stop, step all in the same line. The other one takes 3 separate lines. This is your step, right? The other one takes 3 lines. Okay? So why would you go, why would you even waste these extra lines? You wouldn't. So that's why anything that you can write with a for loop, write a for loop instead of a while loop. It's better practice. But there are some places where while comes in very handy. So let's say, for example, remember how you had, let's say you have int age, right? The good old age. And we're going to have the user do things like cout, and they say, please enter age, right? And let's say between 1 to 123. And then I'm going to do a cn age, and then for the input validation, remember you have to make sure the user enters the correct data. You go and you say, all right, if my, let's do an and, so if my age is less than 0 or my age is greater than 123, right, or let's say less than 1, right, less than 1 or greater than 123, I'm going to do cout invalid age, and then right after that I'm going to repeat this message again, just like that. All right, so I'm going to go in there, let me run the program. How many times do I want to repeat? 1 time. Okay, now please enter an age, and I can't follow directions. I'm going in there, I'm going to give it a -9, right? Invalid age, but I still don't get it. I'm still going to give it like a -8 now, right? And it went on, right? So what I'm going for is I want the user to be stuck in this error message until they get it right. So what do I have to do? Just change this thing, instead of a if to a while. So the while works just like an if, but it happens many times. Okay, so I'm going to run it again. How many times do I want to repeat? 1, -8, -9. Oops, I messed it up because I gave it an actual 9, so it stopped. Let me keep going until several times. So -9, -9, -9, -8, right? It is stuck in this loop forever until I get it right. Right? I can go and give it a really bad one, big one, no, 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 and I finally give it a 3, and it stops. Okay? So that is how a while loop works for input validation. Okay? But if you noticed, I did this 2 times. So I did it 1 time here, and then I'm doing the same thing again down there. Okay? So there's another way to do this, and that is using a do while. Right? So use a do while to reduce the number of lines of code above. Okay? So basically, a do while, it goes like this: do something, right? And then you're going to have your while condition at the end. So I'm just going to copy that whole thing, paste it in there, and just to throw you off, that's the only time you're going to put a semicolon. Don't ask me why, it's just the stupid rules of the language, right? That's the one time they figured you should have a semicolon. But you have to have a semicolon. So no semicolon for the while, just like no semicolons for the for, but the do while needs one right at the end, okay? How is this going to work? Well, it's especially useful for input validation. When you're going to have, let's say the user, I can have my age is equal to whatever. I'm going to give it a bad value initially, right? So remember how this loop, or I'm going to give it a good value. Right? So this is a good value for age, which would have made this loop stop, right? So if my user enters a good value here, we're never going to even get into the loop because it's good. But I'm giving it a good value here, and this loop is supposed to stop for a good value, but I'm still going to enter into it because, right, do while is a loop that happens at least one time. Right? So this loop up here might not happen at all. Same thing with the for loop. If you give it some weird thing, you know, if you set up your for loop the wrong way, it might not ever, you know, do anything. Okay? But this loop, the do while, is going to happen at least one time. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this stuff here, copy this, throw that in there, right? And then I'm going to run this again. One time. Let me stop this one for the good one. Now it's getting into the do while. Maybe I should have set it do in there. Do while, right? So you know which one's what. Let me run it again. 1, 3. Okay, so now we're in the do while. Okay. I'm gonna go in there. I'm gonna give it a negative value, right? Negative value, right? Really, really big value, and then it stops when I give it a good one. Right? But we enter it into it even when it's not supposed to happen. Right? It happens at least one time. So it's very useful if you're going to be doing input validation. Okay? Questions? So this is input validation with a while loop. Okay? So far so good? Any questions? All right, so now some more practical applications. So these are the basic syntax of the language, and you have pretty much learned most of the things required, well, not most of them, like 99% of the things required for you to write a program. The only thing you haven't learned is functions and some other things, but this is the meat of programming. If you understand ifs and elses, if you understand input and output and these loops, that's the main thing. Okay? Everything else follows from that. Okay, so some practical applications. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go straight to the assignments for today. Right? So we have a couple of them in there, and I'll just give you some hints through for these as I go through them. So the first one is P19. Just there's some two loop example programs. Type up the whole thing, get it to work, just the usual. If it works, show me how it works at the bottom of your programs, and that's it. Now the next one, P20. All right, how does P20 go? So you have some kind of a table. You're gonna have a bunch of kilograms on the left, and you're gonna have a bunch of pounds on the right. Okay. So to give you an example of how to do this thing, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it right here at the bottom. And it's gonna kind of suck. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn off all this code right now. All right? I'm going to turn off all this thing so it doesn't show us all this stuff and it doesn't ask me to do things. All right? Let me just run it, make sure it works. Nothing. Okay, good. That's what I want. Okay. So this is, let's say this is your P20 hint. Is it 20 really? Yeah, it's 20. Okay, so P20 hint. So let's say I have, I don't know, what do I have? What's in a simple conversion? Give me some kind of a currency. Yen. Yen, okay. What's 1 yen in dollars? So I don't have to go.
There's 90 yen and a dollar.
90 yen and $1. Okay, and we're going to take Marissa's word for it because she never lies, right? It has to be 90. So what we're going to do is we're going to say for int dollar is equal to 1, and let's say I want to do dollar is less than 100, right? And then we're going to do dollar plus plus, right? So I want to jump by plus, well, let's make it plus. Dollar plus equals 5. Show me every 5 of them, right? So it's going to show me $1, $6, $11, all of them, right? First thing I want to do is I'm going to put like a little label on top. Well, first of all, I can do this way. Now in here, I'm going to say, okay, cout dollar is equal to dollar and L, right? If I run this thing, there you go, a bunch of dollars, right? Like I told you, 1, 6, 11, all the way to like 96 or whatever. Who cares? Okay, but first I'm showing you the dollars, and then, well, hold on. I don't want to see this label in front of every single dollar. Why don't I put like a little label on top, and then it's going to show you the dollars underneath it, the actual values. So I'm going to pull this thing out of there. All right. In fact, I can get rid of the quotes. I'm going to cout right here. Whoops. Put that in quotes. Like this. And new line. All right. I'm going to run it again. And now you have the little label and then the values underneath it. Okay? So far so good? Alright, so the next thing is I want to show you the value of the yen. Right? So we already said that $1 is 90 yen, right? So that means that here, I can put a little yen if you want, but I'll put just a label on top. Alright, it's going to be yen here. I'm going to get this little extra space here that I had, throw it in here, and I can fix things later so it looks right. Alright, and I'm going to say dollar, let's just make a variable. Alright, so I'm going to say int yen, right? And then I'm going to throw in yen is equal to dollar times 90, right? And then in here I'm just going to show you the yen, like that. Okay? So run it, and right, these are your yen. Any questions? So far so good? Okay, so that's your example for the P20. All right, there's an example on the class page about where's the set the number of leading zeros with using set W. So that is so that, notice in here, let me make this thing go to 120 or something, so you can see what happens. So notice how this thing gets crooked when I go from this column right here. See this? It shifts 1 to the right when I go from 2 digits here, from 1 digit here to 2 digits, and it's going to do the same thing when I go from 2 digits here to 3 digits. It just it's forcing this to go 1 to the right. There's a way to fix that, and that is using this set W business. All right, so I already showed you this set W. All right, so the way it goes is you do set W3. All right, so I'm going to go in there. I'm going to do set W3. I have to include IO manip because that's why this thing is complaining. So I got to go in there and I have to include IO manip, right? Input output manipulation, right? Throw in this, and now if everything goes as planned, you're gonna see that it's all lined up, right? Maybe I can add a little extra space in there, right? Run it again. There you go. Now it's perfect, right? So now the second column is all lined up. It doesn't shift because I told it reserve 3 spaces for this thing, and then the next thing follows. Okay. There's also an option for you to line these things to the left, and that's the purpose of left here, right? So the default is this way, and the left is this way. Okay. Any questions? That's that. All right. Next one. Numbers from 1 to 1,000 x per line. All right. So I go in there, and It goes like this. Write a program which asks the user for a number x and then outputs the number from 1 to 1000 showing x numbers per line. Okay? Here, I'll show you a simple way to do this. Okay, I'll give you some hints. So this is number 21. So P21 hint, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to show, I don't know, 7 numbers per line. Okay? And again, how many, am I going to use a for loop or a while loop for this kind of a problem? What do you think? Do I know how many times this thing is going to happen? I do. It's going to show me the numbers from 1 to 1000. So for that one, I'm going to use a for loop. Okay? So I go for, show 7 numbers per line. Let's go for the numbers from 1 to 100. Okay? So I go, all right, int num is equal to 0. Num is less than or equal to 100. I want to go start from 1, not 0. Right? Go to 100, all the way to the 100. And I'm going to do num plus plus, right? Increase the value of num every time. So if I just did cout num, num equals num and del, right? If I run this thing, there's your num, right? But now I'm showing them every number per line. That's no good. What I want to do is I want to show them on the same line and 7 per line. So if I got rid of the and del, then that's no good either, because then it's going to go and show me all the numbers on the same line, right? Even if I get rid of this num business here, right? And I run it, right? All the numbers on the same line. Even if I put like a little, let's put a little space. Okay, run again. Right? Shows them all of them on the same line. Okay, so what I want to do is, there's a couple ways to solve this. I'll show you the easy way, or the conceptually easier one. Okay, so what I want to do is count every number that is shown, and if you count 7 numbers, show a new line. So I make up a variable int count, make that thing equal to 0. Every time I show a number, I do count is equal to, or just do plus plus, right? So that's counting every number that is shown. And then if you count 7 numbers, show a new line. So, all right, if my count is equal to 7, I'm going to do a cout and del, right? Let me throw in the curly brackets so to keep things consistent. Okay, I run this thing, and it shows me 7 for the first line, and then it stops working. Why is that?
You can reinitialize the counter.
Reinitialize the counter, exactly. So what happens to the counter? It goes to 7. When I show 7 numbers, the counter goes to 7. And then what happens to the counter when I show this number? It goes to 8. When I go to the next number, it goes to 9. So it counts every number. So I have to you have to reset the counter back to what value?
0.
Yep. Right. I have to give it back to 0 so that it restarts counting. So this is restart counting. Otherwise, it does it right one time and then that's it. So there you go. 7 per line. Okay. Questions? All right. Next one is 22. Sum of numbers. Okay. So write a program to find the sum of every integer from 150 to 250. All right. Here's your little hint on this. All right. This is P22 hint. All right. So what I'm going to do is, let's just do sum of numbers from, I don't know, 10 to 20. Okay, so I just go for num, int num is equal to, what's my initial value? 10. All right, and num is less than or equal to what value? 20. And then I go num plus plus. What I have to do is I'm going to make a variable sum, just like I did with my counter, right? Up here in the counter, right? And I'm going to make my sum equal to 0, right? And then in here, I'm going to say, all right, sum is equal to sum plus num. Okay? You can also do sum plus equals num. Either way works. Okay? And then at the end of this whole thing, I just tell you, okay, not print, cout, sum is equal to sum. Okay? Low endl. Run again. So there you go. Sum is equal to 165. Maybe I should do a new line right there in front, 2. So it shows on a new line. There you go. Okay? So that's the sum of a bunch of numbers. Okay. Let's say an extra little hint in there is, let's say you have I want the user to enter, I don't know, X numbers and find the sum of those. All right, and this is actually going to be your hint for this business right here, 24. And actually 25, okay? So, in fact, why don't I get to that when I get to that? So, let me go in order. So I did 20. I did 22. The next one is 23. All right. So you already know how to figure out if a number is odd or even. Hopefully you remember, and if you don't, I'll refresh your memory. You also should know how to make accepts integers for all. So the user, you don't have to make a random number or anything. So the user enters numbers. All right. So how many numbers? Oh, the program should stop asking for integers when the user inputs a 0. Okay, so when I do something like this, do I know how many times the loop is going to happen? No. It could happen 10 times, it could happen 50, could happen a million. The user might go crazy and just enter numbers all night long. Okay? So what we're going to do is, so we don't know how many times the loop is going to happen. So I go, all right, I'm just going to make a loop that's while true. And that will be an example of how we can stop a loop, right, that goes on forever. So first I'll show you an infinite loop. While, instead of while true, I'm just going to put 1, right? Because remember, true is 1, false is 0, right? 1 means true, right? So it's a loop that goes on forever, and if I do cout high, right, you should see a whole lot of highs. Run it. And maybe I should have put it on a separate line. Ooh, it's kind of crashing my computer. There you go. Stop it. Come on, C line. You can do better than this. Alright, so if I put... Come on, click already. Somewhere. Took a dump. Alright, hold on.
Demonstrating how to control it.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, normally it's not supposed to crash like that. It actually highlights it. Endless loop. Thank you, Sea Lion. Can you stop it then? Okay, I can click on things at least. Alright, oh, it's highlighting it because it's a Sea Lion is so freaking clever that it's actually telling me that this is an endless loop. That's why it's all highlighted like this. Which it is. You saw that it kind of messes up my program. It can, run into some unexpected results. So what I want to do is I want to kill this loop. So I'm going to say, instead of cout, I'm going to tell them, all right, enter, and let's say enter a -999 to stop. Okay, and I'm going to do a cin, and I don't know, let's call value in there. I'm going to say int value. Okay, and then we're going to get the user to type in their value, and then if the value is equal to negative 999, then I'm going to do a break. Let's do a curly brackets just to keep it consistent. Break. Now see lines happy. Okay, so what is a break? Break means stop the loop here. Stop or exit. Okay, so let's have a look at this thing. I run it. All right, enter negative 999 to stop. No, 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 no. Negative 999 stops. Okay, so if you don't know how many times something happens, there you go. You can do it that way. Any questions? Okay. So, just to show you, if I do a C out and a little high in there, high and L, if the user enters negative 999 and we hit the enter, we're going to exit the loop and we're never going to get to this line of code, right? So if I go and I run this thing and I give it a negative 999, you will never see this little high message here, right? Doesn't show. Okay, so whatever's after the break, if you hit the break, you exit the loop, nothing underneath happens. Okay? All right. So, you have a program, so the program should stop asking for integers when the user inputs a 0, so mine stops at a negative 999. So this is your hint for P23. Hint P23. Okay? We're going to do this. So how do we know if the number is odd or even? Now we have to count them even. Do we have to count them? Yeah, I have to count. All right, so I'll show you. Let's do count, because I already have a count set up from before. I can't redeclare it if I try to do int count again. Doesn't like it. Duplicate declaration, blah, blah, blah. I can try to run it. You're going to get a similar compiler error. Redefinition of count, so you can't declare the same variable twice. Right? It is what it is. You declared it. So count is equal to 0 initially. If you're going to count something, always start it at 0, unless you mean to do something else. Okay? And then in here, I'm going to say, all right, instead of this high thing, I'm going to say if my value modulus 2 is equal to 0, and let me change this. Actually, I'm going to make a int count even. All right? So if I find one of this, so this is true for an even value, and I'm going to do count even plus plus. Okay? That's it. And then at the end I can show you, see out, you entered, I don't know, count even values. Okay? And that's that. Okay, let's test it. Alright, so negative 99 to stop. I'm going to go give it an 8, give it a 3, and give it a 6, and then give it a negative 999. And there you go. You entered 2 even values. Okay? Questions? That's that. So that's your hint for 23. Next one is 24 and 25. 24 and 25 are pretty similar. Okay, so I'll just show you the hint for 24. Yeah, I'll combine them both. So this is hint 23, 24, 25. So multiple hints at once. Okay. So the loop stops at a certain value, and now what I'm going to do is I'm also looking for the smallest. Let's just do smallest. You already know how to do the sum, and let's say I want to do average. Okay. So let's make up some variables and sum. I already have sum, right? So I'm going to start my sum is equal to 0, right? I'm also going to make up a variable. Let's say I'm going to put it right here, smallest and an average. Okay? And average is not going to be exact because it's an integer. It's going to cut off the decimal. So let me change that. All right? I'm going to change my, I'm going to add another one, float average, or average, look at that. Okay. So you already know how to do the sum, hopefully. Every time they enter a value, and after I have checked that the value is not negative 999, so I don't include it in the sum, I'm going to say sum plus equals, or sum is equal to sum plus the value that they entered, right? Also known as sum plus equals value. Okay, you add value to the old content of sum. Okay, so this is to sum all of them. That's easy, right? To figure out the average, you go cout, or let's just do average here, average. So after I have calculated the sum, I also should count how many variables I have entered, right? Or how many values I have entered. So every time I enter a value and that value is not a negative 999, I'm going to count it. So I'm going to make a count. Let's do an int count values is equal to 0. And then my count values goes up by 1 every time they enter a value, which is not a negative 999. Okay? So my average is calculated by dividing the sum by the count values. Okay? And I can show you that. Cout the average is, and you can show the average. Okay? And that's it. And del. Okay? That's not so hard. Okay, the other one, a little more complicated thing is finding the smallest. And by the way, finding the largest is very similar. So let's come up with an algorithm. So this is, let's do single lines of comment. Alright, so this is an algorithm to find smallest. Okay, it goes like this. So the first thing you want to do is make a variable smallest, right? And set it equal to the first value entered. Right? So make a variable smallest, set it equal to the first value entered. Then compare smallest to every other value entered after the first. Right? And then 3 is if any of the other values is smaller, make smallest equal to that value. Okay? So let's just follow my algorithm. And again, if you can't figure out what the problem is or how to solve the problem, start up with just writing out words in your own language to, solve this problem. Okay? So first I made a variable smallest. Okay, I got this done. That's done. Now set it equal to the first variable entered, right? So where am I going to do this? I'm going to throw it in here. So make smallest equal to the first value entered. How do I do that? How do I know which one's the first value? They could enter 1,000,000 or 5. What tells me that it's the first value? What tells me that it is the first value? Which variable? Count values. Okay, so what is count values equal to when we have our first variable? Starts at 0, right? And then when they enter the first variable or value, what is it equal to? 1, right? So if my count values is equal to 1, right? This is true for the first value entered. Then I make smallest is equal to value, right? Make value smallest equal to the first value, right? So let's say they have something like this. Whoops. Let's say they have where was I? Right here. Okay, so let's say they have some numbers like 10, 4, 1, 3, or 2, whatever, 3. Okay, so what I'm saying is we're going to make smallest equal to this one initially, right? So that's what I just said. I'm going to make smallest equal to that first value that they entered. Okay, then I'm going to compare smallest to all the other values. So okay, then the next thing is I'm going to check is this value, whatever that value is, less than smallest. If it is, then I'm going to make smallest equal to that value. So now smallest is equal to 4. Then I'm going to go to the next value. I'm going to say, all right, is this value less than smallest? Well, 1 is less than 4, so now smallest is equal to 1. So now I picked up the next smallest number. Then we go to the next one, right? 3. Is 3 smaller than smallest? Nope. So smallest is left with the smallest value that it picked out of all these numbers. Okay? So if this was true, if this if here is true for the first number, then if I go and say else, right? Thanks for putting this here. I'm going to do another curly brackets, right? So then else happens, so the else here happens for every number after the first. Okay? So if any of my other values is less than my smallest, right, then make smallest equal to that value. Okay? That's exactly my algorithm. So compare smallest to every other value entered. That's this. Okay? And then if any other value is smaller, make smallest equal to that value. So that is this piece here. Okay? Make sense? All right.
What is your break point?
My break point is this, when they enter the negative 999. So they keep entering values until they enter the negative 999. That stops. So let's have a look at this. I run it. Hopefully it works. So I enter negative 999 to stop. I'm going to put these values that I told you, that I came up with. So it's a good idea to start with like a small set of numbers, and then just test your program for that, like these really easy small numbers, to see if it works initially. If it works for these, it will likely work for a bunch of other ones. Okay, so I'm going to do 10, 4, 1, 3, right? So 10, 4, 1, 3, and negative 999 to stop it. And enter 2. I didn't even show it, so make sure you show it. All right. So I'm going to do cout. The smallest value is smallest, and L. Okay, one more time. 10, 4, 1, 3. 10, 4, 1, 3, negative 999. There you go. Smallest is 1. Okay. How do you think you're going to find the largest?
Same logic with the largest value.
Same logic with the largest value. All you got to do is make a variable largest, flip the sign around to find the largest. Okay, same thing. You're going to make largest equal to the first value entered. Same way we did here. Then you're going to compare largest to every other value. If any other value is bigger than largest, that's your largest. Okay? So now you know how to do sum, you know how to find smallest, you know how to do average, you know how to count evens, right? Questions? Okay, 24, 25, 26. All right, 26, last one, last little hint for today. Write a number guessing game. The computer will generate a random number between 0 and 100, right? The user will be prompted to guess the number. All right? And then if the number guessed is greater than the random number, you give them a message. Right? So let's say the number they're trying to guess is 50. right? From 100 numbers, let's go with 50, right? First, well, let's say the number is 45, right? So how would you guess a number between 0 and 100? What would be your first guess? Okay, good. So you always want to go in the middle, right? So 50 is your first guess, right? So from 100, half of that is 50. It's actually 45, right? So I'm going to tell you, no, it's less than that. So what would be your next guess? So now you know that your number to guess is between 0 to 50. What would be your next guess?
25.
Yeah, so you always go in half. So you go, okay, 25. All right, no, 25 is you need to guess higher than that, right? Because my number is 45. And then you keep repeating that. That's a binary search, right? That's a binary search, and you would take no more than 7 guesses to find a number using a binary search, okay? Or you can just try to guess a number one by one and just try every possible number, which can take you up to 99 times, okay? And that's an illustration why you would want to be able to sort things, and I'll show you how to sort things later, okay? That's a little bit too early for that, okay? But just using these loops and ifs and else's, we can sort a bunch of numbers. So we can enter a bunch of numbers into something called an array, and then later we can sort that array. But that's later, okay? And by the way, you're going to have to know how to do the sum, the min, the max, the average, and the sort for your final project. Yeah?
Are we doing like sort section before the midterm or not?
Sorts not before the midterm, because the midterm does not cover arrays. Yeah. Okay. So, guessing number game. All right. So let's just. This is your hint for 26. I'm gonna throw that in there. So P26 hint, right? So let's say I have an int num to guess, right? Let's say, and then the user enters this thing, right? User enters this, but for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to make it equal to 45 that I told you. Okay? And then I'm going to make some value and guess, which is equal to, I don't know, -9, right? Some value that's not even in the list of, good values. So, and then I'm going to say, okay, while, I can make it a while true. I can just make it a while 1, but let's do this. While my guess is not equal to my num to guess, right? So it's a loop that will go on until this is true, which is true in the beginning. They're not equal, okay? And I'll give you one of them, right? So I'm going to do if my guess is less than my num to guess, right? So let's say you guessed 25, but the number is 45, right? You're going to tell them cout, no, it is higher than that, right? And then in the very beginning, or right after that, let's throw it in there, you can say cn, or just enter a number, cn, let's do this, cout, enter a number, okay, cn, guess, right? Maybe I should call it guess, enter a guess. Okay, so enter a guess. If the guess is less than the number to guess, no, it's higher than that, and then the loop repeats again and again and again and again. Okay? You can also change this to while true or just while 1 and then add a break in there if they're equal. Okay, but one way or another, you got to end the loop. Questions? Comments? Concerns? These are all your hints. You should be able to do all these assignments. I gave you more than you need to solve these. Okay, I pretty much solved most of them for you. All right, so try not to look at the hints if you can help it. Okay, if you want to develop the thinking, just don't abuse the help too much. Right, you're never going to learn how to program if you follow the hints and you just it's not going to work. Okay, yeah, copy paste is not going to be your friend. Okay. And again, I'm gonna keep giving you similar problems, so you better understand how to do this until you get it completely. Okay? Because I'm going to repeat that problem. Similar problem is going to be when we have arrays. There's going to be a similar problem when we do reading and writing from files. I'm going to ask you, find a number from a list of numbers, find a number, or find the smallest in the list of numbers, find the smallest in a file. Now use a function to do this, but you have to understand these basics, okay, to do the rest. Okay, so one more time, how you save this stuff from C-Line. If you're in C-Line, you just copy this whole stuff, right? Get a text editor like Sublime or whatever, right? Put that in there, save this thing with whatever you want, right? So this is my lecture for 06/29. Oops, no comma, no slashes. 29/2017.cpp. Now you have a CPP file named with whatever you want. You don't have to make multiple projects or add extra files in there. Just keep writing all your code in here. All right? We're good? That's all I have.
Question about next week's class.
Next week, there's no class on Tuesday. 4th of
Your
July.
syllabus has,
I'll change it. I'll change it. I gotta fix it.
Alright.
Yep. I didn't.
So there's no next class on Tuesday then?
No class on Tuesday unless you want to come here and shoot fireworks and stuff
So
like
then
that.
what about, I know I'm in both of your class, CS.
Both classes. No
11
classes.
and 45?
Campus is closed on 4th of July. Yeah.
Okay.
So even if I wanted to come there, they'll lock us out. All right.